So welcome to the Bhagavad Gita course, everybody. Thanks for registering to this course. So let's start with the session rules. So I think I've already shared this in the group. So please keep your cameras on so that it doesn't look like any other office or university meeting. This will be an interactive session. So whenever any of you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands and also grab a pen and paper to note down your questions if it's not something really urgent, so that we don't break the flow of the session. And please you're welcome to ask any question. So one thing to note everybody is asking questions kind of, you know, convinces your intelligence, right? When you get convincing answers. So only then you can take up a spiritual practice as a lifestyle. So we all might be here for different reasons. So feel free to ask questions related to the session. If not, you can always, ask the question. If it's not related to the session, I'll post a small reel or voice message in the WhatsApp group, and all your questions will be answered. And in case if you feel that I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow, if anytime you want a small break to process this information, because most of you may not be used to understand spiritual subject matters, but yeah, that's how I also started. So it'll take some time to come up to speed. And if at all any question cannot be answered in a short manner, just in the interest of time, I'll just mention about it like quickly if possible. If not, I'll always get back to you as a voice message or as a video message in the WhatsApp group or on the Instagram and Facebook page. So the next slide's Gopinath's Youth, the Youth Forum of ISKCON Sydney. So why do we exist? What are we contributing to this particular society as a community? What do we do? So most of us think that ISKCON is another spiritual organization or a Hindu temple where we celebrate festivals. So ISKCON, to just give a quick background, like ISKCON is the first spiritual international organization established in 1968, if I'm not wrong, or 65. So all the other spiritual organizations which came into existence was after this. And within 10 years of establishment, it picked up in 108 countries as an international movement. So what is the purpose of ISKCON is to educate and equip people with universal spiritual insights. So here we have a lot of religions, a lot of people telling too many things, and some things you may find it consistent, and something in some religions you may find it inconsistent. So what is the universal principle which applies for all living beings in this world? So, and also help people with healthy and sustainable lifestyle changes. If anybody wants to adapt to a sustainable spiritual lifestyle and continue whatever you're doing, and you want to start practicing a spiritual lifestyle as a family, then we also facilitate that Indian lifestyle. So what we offer, so based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita, we offer online and in-person course. And this particular course will be a 6-session online course, and we'll try to meet once in person on the third Saturday or something. And we do, as a community, ISKCON Sydney, we celebrate a lot of cultural events, most of the Hindu festivals, and a community for like-minded people. So especially, say, for example, if you want to watch a movie, right? So you take recommendations from people who has taste for movies, who watches good movies, and you hang out with them. Similarly, food, you hang out with people who try different restaurants. So similarly, spirituality is also about cultivating taste. So you can cultivate the taste for a spiritual practice only when you roam around with like-minded people who have already adopted that particular lifestyle. So you are what your association is. It's a very famous saying. So as a spiritual organization, we also facilitate or provide a community for people to come and associate and meet like-minded people, wherein you meet new people, get to know about them, make new friendships, make new relationships. And as always, as all the other principles, we also give you a place of worship where you can come and worship Radha Krishna, Jagannath, and in some temples, ISKCON, there is even deity of Lord Nrsimhadev, Lord Ram installed. And we provide karma-free vegetarian food, which is prasadam, every day, free of cost, and every Sunday, all over the world, in every ISKCON, we have a Sunday feast. So these are the universal principles across every ISKCON center in this world. So moving forward, so let's do some grounding. So grounding is to, basically, you might have had a very tiring day or a tough day. So what do you do? Whatever thoughts that you have, whatever problems that you have in your mind at the moment, or something that's agitating you. So for the next couple of hours, or at least for an hour and a half, let's put all of that aside and maintain a state of awareness that I'm going to focus only on these 39 slides for the next 75 odd minutes. Okay. So all of you can fold your hands and close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. And you inhale through your nose, hold for 5 seconds, and then exhale. When you exhale, you chant Om. Okay. So let's do this together. And after that, you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once after 3 times of inhale and exhale. Okay. So let's all inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. Om. Om. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you might have a question here. So why did we chant Om? And after that, why did we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? So what's the difference between Om and the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? So in Gita, Krishna says that in Omkara, he is the syllable Om. And Om, A-U-M, A represents Krishna, U represents Srimati Radharani, and M represents all living entities. So it is same as the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But why are we chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, 16 syllable mantra, and Om is just like one syllable. So the reason is for chanting Om, there are a lot of rules and regulations which we'll have to follow very, very strictly, else we will not get the benefit of the mantra. But for chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, there are no rules and regulations. You can chant anywhere, any time of the day, in any position, even in your bed. When you wake up, you don't need to brush, you don't need to take bath. Anytime you can chant this mantra. So technically speaking, the benefits will be accessible a lot more easier. So in a nutshell, Om is like Wi-Fi with password. And Hare Krishna Mahamantra is like an access to Wi-Fi without any password. It's a free Wi-Fi. So that's the difference. So moving on to the next slide. So this is the mantra to show some gratitude. So basically, gratitude is like digestion, right? So when you eat some food, your body needs to absorb the nutrients from that particular food. So similarly, paying gratitude to our elders or any of our teachers. So in this case, we are going to read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So we pay gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. So when we show this gratitude or when we pray to Srila Prabhupada, then whatever spiritual knowledge we are trying to acquire, that will create good impressions in our head, and we would be able to sustain in our spiritual journey a lot more longer than we actually do. So all our mind, intelligence has been contaminated a lot by news, media, and even if somebody wants to teach the right things today, then we get contaminated very, very easily by the external world. So we invoke auspiciousness as well with this mantra. And when we show gratitude, we cultivate good qualities like kindness, tolerance, patience, appreciation. All these qualities manifest, which will help absorb spiritual knowledge in a much more efficient way. So let's all show our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual teachers who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance with torchlight of knowledge. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So moving on. So why are we in this session? So most often, like you'll have many different reasons why are you in this session. So you can put that on the chat, or sometimes whatever we plan in life and what happens in our life is not always the same. You will always have ups and downs in your life. So you will have a lot of experiences depending on which you will lose taste for whatever you have been doing for so long in your life. And some people will have like a lot of turning points, like bad experiences, or maybe loss of a person in your life. And something will drive you to seek or search for higher purpose. Or some people will want to know who is that one person who's called as God. How will he look like? What are his qualities? And there are so many religions and so many gods. I'm not able to reconcile why religion is inconsistent. One religion is saying one thing. So, what is that eternal religion? Where can I find this consistency? So, what is spirituality? There are so many spiritual organizations. People talk about yoga, people talk about mindfulness, people talk about consciousness, people talk about peace, harmony, so many things. So, what is spirituality? So, we will have all these questions. So, Bhagavad Gita has answers for all of these questions. So, any time in your life when you may think that I'm not a religious person, I'm not a spiritual person, right? Like, I'm not interested, but why do I still need Gita? No, I may not be interested in religion. So the answer for that is Gita will be a lifelong companion. Everybody is after companionship, right? So we have friends, we have relatives, we have a family. So Bhagavad Gita will be a lifelong companion for all of you guys. So whenever you need answers in your life, so if you pray to your spiritual master, or if you pray to any of your gurus, then that knowledge in Gita will reveal itself to you, which will help you solve your current problems in life. So there are multiple perspectives in which you can put Gita to use. So it's completely up to you in what capacity you want to leverage the knowledge of Gita. So moving forward, who can understand Gita? So Krishna says, you don't need to basically to understand Gita, you don't need to know Sanskrit. All you need to know is, this Gita is translated into 60 different languages. It's called Bhagavad Gita as it is version. So you don't need to know Sanskrit. Everything will be there inside the book. All you need to know is like know one of your mother tongue or at least like basic English and you can understand. So Krishna says that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because who can understand Gita? You are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. So anybody who basically believes in there is a supreme power. So who is that power is a different question. Okay, whether that's an energy or whether that's a person. So who is that particular, what is that particular energy or who is that particular person? That's a different question. So anybody who believes that there is somebody supreme will be able to understand the knowledge of Gita. And depending on your effort, the knowledge will reveal itself accordingly to you. So moving forward, so this is what happens, right? So most of us, what we are doing in life. So we know how to do it, but very few people like understand why we are actually doing things in life. What is the ultimate purpose of life? So nobody teaches what's the ultimate purpose of life. So education, the modern education, right, teaches you how to make money and how to survive in this world. And in between, they'll have like subjects like moral science, history, geography, which is extremely polluted with a lot of information, which is not useful for our life at all. So, what is that knowledge that is consistent or constant, which doesn't keep changing? Say for any education system, right? The modern education system, the syllabus keeps changing according to how the world is changing. And if you see for any technology, right? Technology keeps changing so fast because people's needs keep changing. So what is that particular knowledge which doesn't change? So Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna by Krishna 5,000 years back, and it has the same number of verses for the last 5,000 years, and it has been answering all the questions for every kind of people for the last 5,000 years. So spiritual knowledge is that particular knowledge which is eternal and which will not change with time. So everything else changes with time. So most of us, we hear what to do from our elders or from school, and we'll be driven in a certain way, and accordingly we make friends according to our interest, and we learn how to do it. But ultimately, the fundamental purpose is why? What are we doing in our life? So when Arjuna, so all of us know Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna to Arjuna in Mahabharata during the Kurukshetra war. So it's basically a conversation which happened for just 45 minutes and 700 plus verses were spoken in that conversation, out of which around 575 verses were spoken by Krishna. So Arjuna, when before the battle started, on one side we have the Kauravas and one side we have the Pandavas. So Arjuna asks Krishna to take the chariot and go in between, and he wants to take a look at the armies. When he went there and he starts asking, he gets confused, right? So many things happened before Bhagavad Gita, and everybody knew that this is going to happen. And it happened because everybody made a choice. Then, after all of this, you know, Arjuna knows how Draupadi was insulted and how they were kicked out of their kingdom. And when they came to claim it back, they were again insulted. Multiple insults, not just one or two, in front of so many thousands of people in the assembly. And after all of that, before the war is going to start, he comes in between. And he asked Krishna, why are we doing this? And that's the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna was confused even after, having so many explanations of why this is happening that led them to this battlefield. Arjuna really couldn't process when he arrived at the battlefield. So this is basically right. Like for us, we may be running behind so many things, aspirations or ambitions. At some point of time in life, we all will have a checkpoint to have a reality check. What are we actually doing in life? Why are we actually doing it? What is the ultimate purpose of life? Can somebody please explain that? So a study was conducted, and based on a survey taken in Europe. So there are five key elements that influences or changes one's life. So it is like doubts that you have, it's different phases of life. How should I move on? And fortune, sometimes I have a good fortune, sometimes I have a bad fortune. Relationships, you have your parents. It's always a steady relationships, but all other relationships are not steady. Sometimes relationships end well, sometimes relationships don't end well. And every point in time, you have to make decisions. Sometimes you make good decisions, sometimes you make bad decisions. Good decisions are really, really hard to make, but easy to live with. Bad decisions are easy to make, but really hard to live with. And you can never, ever make decisions in a consistent manner. And we are all bound by time. Every now or then we keep losing some of your known people, and eventually we'll all die at one day. So these five elements can be turning points in everybody's life. These are unstoppable, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. So how do we navigate through these problems? So most of us, we have all of this material problems, right? So for material problems, we find material solutions or we find temporary distractions. So we have to go about the material platform, and we'll have to educate ourselves spiritually so that we can efficiently navigate through these material problems. So we'll come to the discrimination of what is spiritual, what is material very soon. So any questions until now so far with the, I've spoke about 10 slides. So before we move on to the actual concepts that starts from next slide. So how are we going to map these five key elements to the five topics of Bhagavad Gita? And where are we going to start from is going to be the next slide. So before that, I'll pause for a minute. So any questions from anybody?
Um, uh, Pooja here.
Yes.
Not a question as such, but as per your slide, you're saying that there are these five elements. The five elements that you're talking about is death, doubts, fortunes, relationships, and decisions.
Yes.
And you're saying that these are the ones which sometimes make you question, and many of us might be driven to this point.
Yes, many of us will be driven in life by these five elements only. So one will be influencing other in decision making, or some people will come to a kind of a jolt. It'll be like a shock for them that they'll not be able to absorb. Not always things go in the way we want, right? And nobody knows what can happen, when can happen. Today you might wake up with a constant mental without any mental disturbance, but after a few days of work and then making few friends, and all of a sudden one day in life you get really busy and one of the relationship breaks, or your work and your manager does not treat you really, really well, so you lose your mental balance. Then you'll start going back, why this is happening to me, what decision I have taken wrongly. You start introspecting on things. So at this point in time, you will have a lot of disturbance in your daily life. So how are you going to make peace with all those disturbances, and how you are going to strike the right balance? That's what we are going to see through Bhagavad Gita.
I've not understood fortunes. Usually it seems that in human life, when you're doing well, you're fortunate, and at that point of time, you do not doubt things too much.
Yeah.
You do not doubt your decisions. You do not doubt your other aspects as well. Many a time, most of us are not driven towards spirituality when you are in your fortunate times. So that's the bit I've not understood, but perhaps when you elaborate it more.
Yeah, I think maybe the next couple of slides you will get answers
Yeah.
for that. But yes, right, like fortunes, not always you'll have good things happening to you, right? You'll have good fortunes as well as bad fortunes. So this whole world is duality. You cannot have the same thing happening to you again and again. There are so
Mm,
many influencing factors. So when you say fortunes, some people can make good money, some people cannot make good money. Is there bad fortune? And
mm.
you understand, right? So that's the
Yes,
perspective which we
understood.
are trying to explain here. Any other questions from anybody?
Thank you.
Okay, uh, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so these are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita. So today we are going to be discussing the first topic. Okay, so the 5 topics are identity. So who are you? Whether you're your body, or you're your mind, or are you your soul? So Bhagavad Gita gives us an interesting perspective. It says that we are a spiritual being having an experience inside a material body. So this is what we are going to discuss for today. But giving a quick overview of the 5 topics. The first one is identity, or the Sanskrit term is Atma. And the second topic is nature. What is this world? Who made this? What are we doing here? How the world is functioning, right? So when you understand this aspect of what is this nature, how it functions, you will get a clarity on how fortunes act on you. And then inside this particular, okay, you are there in this particular world and you're doing some activity, and you are all bound by time, right? So when you do activity, what are the activities that you're supposed to do in your life? Whether you want to enjoy, whether you want to escape this world, how you want to do this particular activity. So Gita says not to enjoy or not to escape, but engage. So it doesn't say do good things or do bad things, but Gita says do things with a spiritual vision. Okay. So we'll see that in our next week's session in a lot more deeper. So these activities, when we understand karma, how karma drives us, then your decision making will automatically improve. And then we are all bound by time. What happens after death? And sometimes death will be like a kind of an experience which will make you realize that, okay, the life is short, let me make good use of my time. So a lot of people will have this realization, and let me move to a more meaningful life. Due to somebody else's death, you will have an impact in your life. And then finally, right, like, okay, so we are all in this world, we are doing some action, and we are all bound by time. Okay, so who created this time factor? How time came into existence? Nobody answered this question in modern scientific researchers. How did time come into existence? Why we all must be bound by time? So say, for example, right, like God exists can be proved without scriptures, just with simple logic, right? You take a building, you leave that building for 100 years without doing anything, no maintenance, no building manager, or no apartment association, absolutely nothing. Do you think that the building will be sustainable and can be used automatically without anybody maintaining it? You need some person, right? You need somebody or some body to maintain that. So how difficult it is to, arrive at this conclusion that, okay, this world is being controlled by something, whether it's an energy or whether it's a person, that's a different question, right? Say, for example, you take a country doesn't function on its own. You have a government. A government is basically a body. It's not personal, it's impersonal. But the person who's even running the government with different department heads, like your finance minister, or your defense minister, or your prime minister, or your chief minister, there'll be one ultimate decision making authority, and that'll be a person. So it's very simple logic and understanding that there is a creator behind this particular creation. So now, who is that creator? Whether that creator is an energy or whether that creator is a person, that's a different question. And how you as a person are going to connect with the creator is through yoga. The word yoga means connection. So this is the essence of Bhagavad Gita that is explained in 18 chapters, and these are the 5 topics of Gita. And we are going to be discussing the first topic today, and we're going to be seeing some more concepts. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next slide? So this is like a quick overview of Gita and what are the 5 key elements and how it is connected to Gita. Any question? Are you guys able to follow? Okay.
Yes.
We are going to move a little more deeper. Let's see how deep we can go. So this is the basic, the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So before we move to deeper topics, I want all of you to understand this overview. So a thumbs up if you guys are comfortable. Yeah. Anuj, Adeep, Manish. Can we have your cameras on, Manish? Nikita, Lakshmi, Priyal, Haripriya, Gokul. Are you guys comfortable so far? How the session is
Yep.
progressing?
I have one small question.
Sure.
So, so when coming to the activity, so it's like we have to engage in a regulated way. So in that case, so how is why shouldn't okay? It's under basic. It's common sense that we should not do bad, but why shouldn't we also do good? Doing good, we will get something good in return, right? So how is
Absolutely.
doing good is something which is
Absolutely. So
yeah.
that's a very good question. So we will discuss that a lot detail in our upcoming session when we talk about karma and reincarnation. So what are the different types of activities, what type of karma it generates, and even doing good when you understand the purpose of life. So doing good also generates karma. So with what intention you should be doing good also comes into picture. So we will discuss that a lot more in detail. That's an altogether a separate session. Okay. But yeah, hold your ammunition. You'll have more questions when we come to that particular session.
Yep.
Any other questions from anybody? Any questions before we move on to deeper topics? right? Okay, so I'll take that as a no. We'll move on to the next topics. You guys are able to see my screen comfortably, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So moving on to the next slide. Mind, body, and soul. So are we a body, or are we a mind, or are we a soul? So this particular picture is taken from Katha Upanishad. Okay, it's one of the principal Upanishads. So totally we have 4 Vedas, 220 Upanishads, 18 Puranas, and 2 Itihasa. So we will discuss a bit more in detail about the Vedic scriptures in the upcoming slides. So we have these 5 horses, okay, and you have a chariot driver who's pulling the horses with a dead matter, which is a rope, and steering the horses in the right direction. And on the back side, there is a passenger sitting in the chariot. Okay, so these 5 horses represent our 5 sense organs with which we perceive this world: eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and our genitals. Okay, so the chariot driver represents intelligence. Okay, and the dead matter rope represents your mind. So we use our intelligence to steer our mind so that our senses act in the most appropriate way. So the intelligence is used by us to steer our mind in the right direction. Okay. So it is very important to understand what is this chariot. So this chariot is our body, and the passenger is our soul. So if you don't have the intelligence to understand in which direction the chariot must go and in which direction to steer your senses, only then your chariot will go in the right direction. If you are not knowledgeable enough, then definitely you'll be taking your soul in the wrong direction, which is the passenger. Okay, so this is the foundation of the first 6 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, right? So to go a bit more deeper, so we all have certain intelligence. We have been studying for 25 years, and that is something which we have been doing for sustaining in this world and to keep your bodily needs satisfied, right? So now, are you your body or mind or soul? So I was a child at one point in time. I was 5 years old. I had a certain type of body. When I was 10 years old, I had a different type of body. So 10, 20 years back, I had a different type of body, and now I have a different type of body. So who am I? My name is Kapila, but I have taken different bodies in this life. Even science says that our body has trillions of cells, and every 7 years, the cell regenerates. The old cells die and new cells evolve in our body. So that is similar to what our scriptures also say. So who are we? So when I say, bring me a glass of water, I don't say, bring my mouth a glass of water, right? Or when somebody addresses you by your name, so you turn back, right? So say when someone calls me, I turn back. So I'm aware that this is my name. So where does that awareness come from? So when somebody calls you, I immediately move, my body moves, I go towards them. And they never say that, I didn't call your body, but I called your soul. Then people will think that, everyone is insane. So what exactly are we? Who are we in this particular life? So Bhagavad Gita, what it says is, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So if you see this particular picture, which is taken from Bhagavad Gita 2.12, we change our bodies from youth to boyhood to old age. So we can never be our body. So when someone asks, like, where do you actually live? So we all point at our hearts, and even scripture confirms that the soul is actually present in your heart in that particular region. Modern science, they were not able to find out what is actually powering up your heart, but they do believe that that is a real, very tiny element or a particle which is actually powering up the heart. And scriptures also confirm that the soul resides in the heart region. So to answer the question, we are not our body. That is not your identity. So in this time frame, which we are going to live, we have been given this particular body. So we have to function in this human body. Okay, our body changes, but the soul stays the same. So after the lifespan, our soul takes another body and moves on. The soul transmigrates from one body to another. So this is what Bhagavad Gita says. So we are not our body. So then we still have mind. Moving back to the previous slide. So if you see the example of this slide with horse, the ropes, the charioteer. So what I mentioned was the rope is actually dead matter, and that represents your mind. So are we our mind? Definitely not. We cannot be our mind because that's dead matter. It's material. You can't see your mind. You can feel in a certain way, but you cannot be your mind. So the only thing that is remaining is you can't be your intelligence as well, because when you make a particular decision, then at later on, somebody comes and corrects you. That decision may not be efficient always. So that also keeps changing. And your mind also keeps changing. You cannot be in a constant state of mind for a longer period of time. Your mind has a lot of emotions. You can be rational with your intelligence and you can be emotional with your mind, but both keeps varying throughout your life. It's not constant. So the only option remaining is soul. Okay, so let's take the questions before we move forward. Yes, so I see 2 hands raised. Kunal.
Yeah, so I just posted my question in the group chat. So how do we explain soul scientifically? Like, what's the scientific definition of soul?
So what's the scientific definition of soul? So can you rephrase your question when you say scientifically? Because when what I explained was the modern science still cannot understand what is actually pumping your heart. So you can go only to scriptures, but they do come to a conclusion that there is something that is pumping your heart. That's the maximum which the science has penetrated so far. And they concluded that there is something called as consciousness. And as long as the consciousness is active in your body, there will be growth in your body, and you'll be able to feel things when somebody is touching, when somebody is even scolding or even calling you. So that's the max which the science has penetrated. So the upcoming slides will actually answer your question a bit more in detail. Okay, just stay tuned and then we'll discuss. So I think I saw one more hand up. Revati.
Yeah, so is there any significance here when you say that the rope, when you call the rope as the mind, as the dead matter rope, you associate it with the mind in this picture, right? So is there any significance why you do that? And what exactly is the mind here? I understand what the body is, and I kind of understand what the soul is. It transcends from one body to another. And what exactly is the mind? Is it the brain? Think intelligence would be the brain, right?
So no, brain is another piece of matter that is separate. So what is your mind? So brain sends signal to your body depending on what you think, right? So some point in time wherein like you wanted to get up from your place and you want to go somewhere or do a jogging, your body wants to do it, but something will tell you, no, let's do it tomorrow. Yes, that is your mind. So mind is a very, very subtle element which we cannot see. And it is what that helps you feel or make any decisions or accept or reject. So intelligence is nothing but the knowledge that you possess, and using that particular knowledge with your mind, you make decisions. Okay. And depending on that decisions, your sense organs function. Your brain just sends the signal to your sense organs to function. That's it.
Sorry.
Did that answer your question, Priyanti?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I had somebody else as well speaking. Any other
So
question?
can we say soul is kind of an energy, or because we haven't perceived, as you said, modern science hasn't been able to define what soul is. So what exactly is it? Is it something energy, or is it like a battery charging the body, or like like a battery charging the mobile? So is it like soul is kind of a charger for the body, or
So we'll see that in the upcoming slide. So basically, we are present inside this particular body. So we are the spirit soul. So we will see the characteristics of the soul in the upcoming slides. So stay tuned until then.
sure?
So any other questions? So are we clear that we cannot be our body because the body keeps changing, and we cannot be our intelligence? that keeps changing over a period of time. We cannot be our mind. We cannot be in the same state of mind for a longer period of time. And it all keeps changing. So it's temporary and not permanent. So who are you? What is our real identity? And what are we doing inside this world? So at a particular stage in everybody's life, right? Like you cannot be happy always. We keep doing something or the other. And for some people, nothing will make them happy. And after thorough analysis, they will come to a conclusion that they are not fit to be in this world. They are spirit souls. Okay. So where did they come from? Why did they come here? And now how do you get out of this? So all that details will be seen in Bhagavad Gita. So moving on to the next slide. So what Bhagavad Gita again says is, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So today you can wear a particular set of clothes and tomorrow you are free to change it. So similarly, for a certain duration of time, our soul has taken this human body to perform some activities. So why human body? How human body? We will come to that details in the upcoming sessions. But so far, if I say I am Kapila, then who am I? I am residing in this human body with eyes, nose, ears, mouth, 2 legs and 2 hands. So basically, this is not me. Okay, so I am interacting with this particular world. I'm doing certain functions. So what am I supposed to do? What is my ultimate purpose of life? So those are the questions which one must be asking when they have the realization that I'm not this body, I'm not my mind. Then who am I? So when you come to this particular state of life, then, or if you come to a realization that this world keeps changing, right? Like happiness here is temporary. There is happiness, there is sadness, there is good, there is bad. It's complete duality. So where is this eternal happiness? Yes, so there is something called a spiritual world. The soul belongs to the spiritual world. We are spiritual beings having a material experience for some reason. What is that reason is what we have to find out. Why? So the journey of the soul is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. And what we must be doing according to whatever bodies that we get in this lifetime. And how to give up this body and eternally go to the spiritual world where there is only bliss or happiness. And all that information will be given in Bhagavad Gita. So first, you will discover the truth. Okay, that's what we saw in the overview slide. So you are this particular soul. You are doing some activity inside this world and you're bound by time inside this creation. And we also saw logically that there is a creator. And Bhagavad Gita says that creator is a person, Krishna, and he is in the spiritual world. So now, how do we connect with Krishna? Is the yoga system, which we'll be seeing it in detail. Okay, so first we make the discovery and there is a process and then you will reach the goal by following that process. Now, say when you fall in love with a BMW car. So basically, first you understand that, okay, that's a luxurious car. You first, make a relationship with that particular object, right? And then to get that particular car, so say that car will be like $80,000, but I have only $20,000 with me. Okay, so now you will follow the process to make more money and to achieve that particular goal. So similarly, Bhagavad Gita will tell you what is the ultimate goal for a soul, okay, and how to achieve that goal. So right now we are in the discovery process inside this particular world. So when Arjuna asks Krishna, why are we doing this? So that is where he's in the discovery process. And now with spiritual knowledge, his intelligence will be sharpened, and then you will see the progression in the vision, how he'll be steered to the ultimate purpose of life. So moving on to the next slide. So we already discussed this, the body and mind are material. Okay, the body is actually gross and the mind is actually subtle. You can't see. So the body is also material. It has like all your earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Inside it's made of these 5 elements. So the flesh is your earth element, and water, the blood, is your water element. And we do have fire and air in our body. The whole process of digestion takes place with that particular heat in our body, else the food won't be digested. So that is the fire element. The heat is produced from the fire element. And then air, we breathe oxygen, so many carbon dioxide exhale. So we do all of that. And then the life force is the life air is the ether. And mind, we saw it's basically you can't actually see the mind. We just can understand how mind interferes with our intelligence and our sense objects. So we'll have understanding the mind, we'll have a separate session. So the second session after this, in the subsequent sessions, I'll show you what all I'll be taking you through. So the body and the mind are material, but the soul is spiritual. So for now, let's proceed with an assumption that the soul is spiritual. So we are not our body, we are not our mind. So who am I? The answer is I am the soul. Okay, we came to this conclusion by the principle of negation. So matter is temporary, spirit is eternal. So we saw this as well. We keep changing bodies. At this life, we take one form of body, and the next life, we take some other form of body. And how we do that, we'll get into details later on. So coming to the question from Kunal. So what is this particular soul? So our scriptures, so going beyond science, right? Like the current science cannot measure the soul, basically. The technology is not enough to measure the soul. So what scriptures say is the soul is 1 by 10,000 tenth part of the tip of your hair. You cut your tip of your hair and you divide that in 10,000 pieces. That is the size of the soul. And the symptoms of the soul are growth and consciousness. We spoke about this as well. So when I die, what do people say? He passed away. What does it mean? The body is still here. What passed away? What determines that I'm alive? You go to a hospital and they say that he's dead. He passed away. So what determines that he's alive? That's the soul. The symptoms of the soul are growth and consciousness. As long as the soul is there, even if somebody in coma and if he or she is conscious, your nails grow, your hairs grow. There will be some symptoms. So the symptom of the soul are growth and consciousness. And the soul is situated within the region of the heart. So this is what the scriptures say, which kind of resonates with what we feel as well. So now, when we say we are giving universal insights, so is this applicable to animals? The answer is yes. They also have a heart. They also have a soul. Is this applicable to plants? The answer is yes. So when you plant a seed, it germinates. And how does a plant grow? The plants do have consciousness. They grow towards the process of photosynthesis. They grow towards wherever there is sunlight. And it has been scientifically proven that plants have consciousness. An Indian scientist has proven that, and he's even got a Nobel Prize for that. I think it's Jagjit Singh or someone. You can refer that in Google. So this principle of soul appears to every living being. So that's how each and every principle of Bhagavad Gita becomes universal. It is not for just human beings. Every soul is on a particular journey and they have different obstacles. Humans will have a certain set of obstacles. Animals will have different set of obstacles. They have been given a body to perform some other activities, but they do have a soul. They also do some activities in this world. So how they are getting out of their body and all that detail we'll see in the subsequent sessions. So are we clear until this? Yes, the nature of the soul is eternal. It is not temporary like our body or mind. And the soul is full of knowledge. The moment we sharpen our intelligence with spiritual intelligence and we purify our mind by regulating the sense organs, then we will have access to that pure knowledge which will give you eternal happiness, the pleasure, the bliss, which is called as ananda. So the nature of the soul is that it always seeks pleasure, but the soul is stuck inside this body and it derives, due to lack of intelligence or lack of spiritual knowledge, we derive pleasure from our body, the sense organs, like food or sex or drugs, drinks, cigarettes, or even money, making more money by gambling, doing illegal activities, right? So what if I say that the topmost form of pleasure which the humans can experience is the sexual pleasure, okay? The sexual pleasure. What if I say that you can derive a higher pleasure from a spiritual source? Because we saw in the previous slide that the nature of the soul is full of bliss, right? So soul and the soul always seeks pleasure, which is absolutely fine. So now, how do you nourish the soul and how do you get that eternal pleasure? So every pleasure which we are seeking or which we are deriving it from all the material substances, the external substances, all those pleasures are temporary. They last only for a certain amount of time. They cannot last longer. So now you need to derive it from a non-material source. which is the spiritual source. And you can derive that pleasure only from the reservoir of pleasure. Only if you are connected to the reservoir, you will get water. Similarly, the pleasure also. So who is the reservoir of pleasure? Which is Krishna, he says in Gita. So now, how do you connect with Krishna? And how do you derive that pleasure? Or how he is giving that pleasure to you is depending on the relationship you cultivate with Krishna. So Krishna is about science. So if you say scientifically explained soul, no, the science can't even measure the soul in the first place. So Krishna is above science. When he performed that activity, we all know that he lifted the Govardhan hill, right? When he performed activity, he stopped gravity. So you can't see scriptures through the lens of the current modern science or the scientific explanations, because humans are imperfect. Our senses are imperfect, right? So if you want to first understand spirituality, you need to purify your senses. You need to purify your vision. People say that I want to see God and only then I'll believe. So if you want to enter a country, you have certain set of qualifications. You need to have a visa. So similarly, if you want to see God, yes, it is possible, but not with this material vision or with the material senses. You need to purify yourself. You need to be qualified. And then, yes, you can see, you can have a loving relationship. And how do you cultivate that relationship is the process of yoga, the bhakti yoga, with which we connect the soul to Krishna, who is the super soul. So this is the essence. So we all have been taking care of our body. So as you see in this picture, so far we have been fulfilling our bodily needs to survive in this world. And our intelligence is not sharp enough to steer us in the right direction. So it's as good as painting the cage without taking care of the bird, which is the actual soul. That is how we can understand this subject. So any questions until now? So we have been discussing some heavy topics. So before we move to the next few slides, any questions? So are you guys able to
I have a question.
follow? Yeah.
You said plants have soul, and all souls in the world have activities to do. My question is, when you eat, you basically kill a plant, and the plant has soul. So by that, do you stop the progression of that soul?
So the plants have consciousness. That's right. So basically we will cover this in detail in the subsequent sessions, okay, which is karma and reincarnations. To answer your question, by eating, yes, plants, we do generate minimum karma. There are minimal karma which we generate, but every soul, according to their body, they have a bodily dharma and they have a spiritual dharma. Okay. So they'll have to fulfill that particular dharma. That is their responsibility. So we will see that in detail in the upcoming sessions. So the plants, they have consciousness, but they don't feel pain. That's a short answer. Any other questions? before we move on to the next slide. Any other questions, guys?
No.
So you happy to proceed? Okay, so we are already 8:15, so we will just go through the next few slides. And so yeah, why Bhagavad Gita? So we already discussed this, right? Like, what if I'm not religious? Bhagavad Gita is a foundation of spirituality. It's an inspirational book. So what if you're not religious, if you're not spiritual, I'm not into philosophy, I'm already inspired. Why Gita? Why not any other holy books? So one will find in Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found somewhere. That is the specific standard of Gita. So this is what Srila Prabhupada has to say in one of the verses, right? So even otherwise, if you're not holy or not much into understanding philosophy, so we'll see what is philosophy, what is religion, what is faith, what's the difference very soon. So Bhagavad Gita can still be a companion throughout your life and helps you see things in the right perspective. So if you understood the example of the horse, the rope, the chariot driver, and the passenger and the chariot, then pretty much the foundation of the first 6 chapters they have understood. So now let's go through this quickly, right? So when Arjuna, he goes in the middle of the battlefield, in the first chapter he says, "O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra." So he's acting with his senses, which is the eyes. Now, after he goes there, what happens when he goes and stands in between, right? I am now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of Keshi Demon. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle. Sentiments are coming in picture. He sees his own relatives. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire to any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So until this, right, he sees with his senses and sentiments. So mostly through his body, through his eyes, and some portion of his mind, which is still, kind of not purified, some mental speculation with sentiments. So as we discussed, your mind is emotional. It can feel emotions, and your intelligence is rational. It's more logical, acts with knowledge. So he's still on the mental, his mind is not steered in the right direction. But in the 13th chapter, this is what he says. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. So Krishna talks Bhagavad Gita for 12, 13 chapters, which is nothing but the lens of scriptures. So his intelligence is sharpened and his mind is purified. So he is able to access the knowledge beyond the material platform and understand it from a soul's perspective, what the soul is supposed to do, right? So when you see with your senses and sentiments, all it can lead is to hopelessness and depression. Sometimes you may be successful, but not always. And when you see through the lens of scriptures, it gives you hope and clarity. This hope and clarity is sustainable. But if you see through your senses and sentiments, that hope and clarity is not sustainable in a longer run. It may work 7 out of 10 times, but you will be making a disaster at least 1 out of 10 times in your life. So now, finally, 18th chapter, what Arjuna says when he's completely heard the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna. My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy, and now I am firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instructions. So this is the progressive vision or journey of Arjuna. And he's also a soul. So from the material vision, how did he transition to the spiritual vision? The situation is the same. He's in the battlefield. Krishna spoke to him for 45 minutes. So this is the Bhagavad Gita we are referring to. So 575 verses spoken by Krishna, 83 by Arjuna, 41 by Sanjaya, and 1 by Dhritarashtra. So Sanjaya is Dhritarashtra's helper, who tells what is happening. So the whole conversation lasted for 45 minutes, 18 chapters. We saw the 5 topics and the 3 sections. So chapter 1 to 6 talks about Karma Yoga. And from there, we learned how to live. Chapter 6 to 12 talks about Bhakti Yoga, how to love, whom to love. And chapter 13 to 18 talks about Jnana Yoga, how to let go of all the sentiments and unnecessary knowledge that we have been accumulating for so many years, which is leading us to all the troubles, and how to see beyond the material vision and enter into a spiritual platform. So this particular version has your Sanskrit text, and it also has the transliterations in English. So you literally don't have to know Sanskrit. You can just read the English version of the Sanskrit shlokas, or you can just go to the translation or purport. The purport are the explanations and Acharya's view on that particular shloka. What is the best way to interpret it? So these are some of the facts, and these are the 3 sections of Gita in which all the 5 topics are embedded. So we saw the 5 topics, right? So number 1 is your identity, which is Atma. Number 2 is karma, action. Number 3 is Prakriti, the nature. And then time, Kala. And 5 is Ishvara, the controller, the creator, the one who controls everything. And
Just sorry, really quickly. I think we've lost the presentation actually.
sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yep, can do now. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was talking about, okay, so which slides? Okay, yeah, so this was the slide I was explaining. I'll come to your question, Kunal. So when Arjuna, what was the progressive vision of Arjuna? So are you able to see the right slide?
Yeah, we can see now.
Okay, great. So initially when he comes and sees with his senses in the first chapter, right? So he says that, I want to go and see, take my chariot to in between both the armies. I want to see them. So where he acts with his, eyes. And then after he goes there, he starts talking about killing his own kinsmen, wherein the sentiments come in. So it's a mixture of your body and mind, so which is not his real identity. And then Krishna speaks Gita until the 13th chapter, wherein now his intelligence is sharpened and the mind is purified with scriptures and philosophy. And then he's able to sneak into the knowledge of the soul, which we discussed, right? What is the nature of the soul? Sat is eternal, Chit, full of knowledge, and Ananda, bliss. And then how he confirmed in the 18th chapter that he has regained his memory by his mercy. So he accepted Krishna as a guru. So this says that the guru will give you the clarity in vision. That is why we paid gratitude to our guru. From that, the knowledge will be revealed to us in the right spirit. So when you see with your senses and sentiments, all it can lead to is hopelessness and depression. 9 out of 10 times, even if you're happy, no, it can, you cannot sustain with that particular happiness. This world is full of duality. And then if you start sharpening your intelligence with scriptures, your mind will become purified, and that leads to a sustainable hope and clarity in your life. And you start seeing through the vision of scriptures, you will have access to the knowledge of who you are from a soul's perspective and how you should deal with this particular world. And once you have the spiritual vision, you'll be able to operate in a much, much more efficient way, so that you keep nourishing your intelligence spiritually as well as materially, so that you can exist in this world, engage the nature, and make sure that your actions do not lead you to further karma, and you can reach your destination, which is the spiritual world. So that is the journey which the soul has to go through, and right now it is just stuck inside this body and suffocating because of lack of spiritual intelligence. So this is the Bhagavad Gita, which we would be referring to throughout this course. It's a 45-minute conversation, 700 verses, 575 by Krishna, 83 by Arjuna, 41 by Sanjay, and 1 by Dhritarashtra. Total 18 chapters, the 5 topics as we saw before, and then 3 sections, which is chapter 1 to 6, which talks about Karma Yoga, which we can learn how to live and how to let others live as well. And chapter 6 to 12, it talks about Bhakti Yoga, how to love Krishna, the process. So the first 6 is discovery, the process, and 13 to 18 is let go, the goal, with the knowledge how we are going to engage this world. Don't create unnecessary attachments. What is the ultimate purpose? What is the highest purpose of life? So this is the journey which the Bhagavad Gita will be taking you through. And in this course, we'll be having, like in 6 sessions, we'll be seeing how far and how deep we can go into Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and practical application of whatever we learned. A sustainable approach without giving up your current responsibilities. So when you are in this world, the soul has taken us into a, the soul is now stuck inside a body. So you have a bodily dharma, okay? And your body has a dharma, your mind has a dharma, and your soul has a dharma. So your body's dharma is to keep, your senses asking for more pleasure. The body will continue to do that. And your mind dharma is to feel, think, willing to do something, accept, reject, and make decision. And your soul's dharma is to connect with Krishna. So if you don't have the right intelligence, we'll be still fulfilling our body's needs or our mind's needs. So when we have the right spiritual knowledge, we'll be able to fulfill our soul's needs. So when we fulfill our soul's needs, Krishna says that all our material needs would be a byproduct. Automatically, it'll all be taken care of. So, and one more thing about Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is not any type of mental speculation, right? It is science. It is a hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? You can explain what is expected out of this particular process, right? When we practice or take up the spiritual lifestyle, the process is clear and it is understandable, and it should be testable with some experiments. You should be able to, measure it. And it contains two variables, one independent variable and one dependent variable. Say, if I don't study for a particular exam, then I will not get good marks. So what's the independent variable? That is the exam, and the dependent variable is you. So if you don't study to follow any process, then you are not going to get a good grade. So similarly, you can test yourself by following the Krishna conscious principles and see how it reflects in your life. So in order to say something, a hypothesis, there should be a lot of research done in the past, which the previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada and his acharyas for the last 500 years, they have been doing a lot of researches, and they have put down a process which we have to follow. And that process is completely based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita. So if you follow Bhagavad Gita, then you will be able to derive that particular happiness, which is sustainable for a longer period of time. So any questions? I think I'll stop here. Any questions before we go into the next deeper subject, where the next session we'll talk about what are the different Vedic scriptures, so that we get an understanding of how Bhagavad Gita is positioned. So any questions?
So not for this session, but I would like to understand, perhaps I'm not sure if you're taking it in another session. You talked about the journey of the soul,
Yeah.
right? And finding the purpose of the soul. So how do we find out what is the purpose of our soul? And also, I would like to understand, why are some souls different from the other? What I mean is, if you come across some people, let's say you took the example that some people are not very happy with something, they're not even sad. So what I mean to say is, you do whatever, they do not have these highs and lows, they do not experience this. While others, you meet other people, they get very happy even with very small things, or they get sad with, they get very, very emotional with some other incidents in life. So this is one of the things I would like to understand. What is the difference between these souls? How do you relate to different types of souls?
Yeah. So to answer first, I'll answer your second question. So it all depends on the level of intelligence that every person has. So say, for example, if you understand what you actually need, right? What you have is not always what you need. So some people will not be able to understand what they actually need, and they keep acquiring so many things. They keep cultivating so many attachments. So if you have that clear understanding of what you actually need, then you'll be able to let go of things very, very easily. So Bhagavad Gita, what it teaches you is to think like a visionary, not for immediate results. So our mind tries to choose the least resistance path, and it tries to derive pleasure immediately and tries to do things which are easy. Only our intelligence can steer us to do what is right and what is more optimal for this current life. So Bhagavad Gita teaches you how to think. So currently, if one particular soul finds happiness in one way and the other soul is not finding happiness in another way, so you'll be having a certain train of thoughts, and I'll be having a different train of thoughts. What can necessarily make you happy? It may not be the case for me. My train of thoughts would be different. And how train of thoughts would be different is based on the level of intelligence and the balance between the spiritual and the material intelligence. You can't survive with just one in this particular world. I'm doing only spirituality, and now I'm going to go to the forest and just keep doing meditation. That's not going to work. You still have a bodily dharma. You'll have to maintain this body, and you have a responsibility towards a society in which you're living also. So you have a body dharma, and you have a societal dharma, and you have a spiritual dharma. You need to make sure that everything you find the right balance. So end of the day, if somebody is able to be happy even without any spiritual principle, which means, okay, they have found some material purpose which is a bit higher, right? But ultimately, the highest purpose of life is what Krishna will be telling to you in Bhagavad Gita. And it takes time for people to understand, process, and digest. And only if you actively participate in Krishna consciousness, you will be able to get the taste to kind of practice it as a lifestyle. So I can only tell you that Rasagulla will be sweet, right? Or a gulab jamun will be sweet. Only if you taste it, you will understand how sweet it is.
Yeah.
And what's your first question? Sorry, can you repeat your first question?
So my first question was, how do we understand what is the final goal of my soul? So
Yes.
from the way you explained, I also kind of understand that all souls perhaps have the ultimate same goal of meeting the Almighty, right?
Every soul, the ultimate purpose of life is the same. Right now, there are no universities or no colleges or education institutions which is teaching what is the highest and the ultimate purpose of a soul. In fact, because of modern science, the souls, everybody's purpose have become subjective according to their own, because they see it through the material vision. But only if you transcend from material to a spiritual vision, understanding that you are not this body and this world is a place of duality, you come to that conclusion, then Bhagavad Gita's knowledge will help you understand the ultimate purpose of the soul. So we'll be seeing a bit of, where Bhagavad Gita is positioned in the Vedic scriptures. What are the Vedas? What are the Upanishads? What are the Puranas or the Itihasas? And how different philosophies come into picture. What is Vedanta? And we have different people practicing same spirituality, right? So how everything comes into picture, we'll be talking a lot more before we go into the next session. So we'll have a little bit of more understanding of how religion is placed, what is spirituality, what is the eternal religion, what they call as Sanatana Dharma, and everything. And then how Bhagavad Gita like comprises of everything. You don't need to go actually beyond Gita, to be honest. And depending on whatever taste you get out of Gita, and depending on whatever relationship you want to cultivate with God, Krishna, and depending on that, there are like n number of scriptures which you will read, depending on whatever phase of life you are in. That is how you will be taking this forward. So once you get a taste for something, the tendency would be is to maximize it, right? So when you ask questions, you get convincing answers, your intelligence will be sharpened, it will be fine-tuned. So then your faith increases when you associate with people who are already practicing that as a lifestyle. And only when you see them being happy, then you can accept it in your lifestyle and your faith will increase a bit more. So that is how the process works. Like anything, right? Like if I want to learn carpentry, I don't have to in Vedic system, like 2000 years back. If I want to learn carpentry, I don't want to go to a school, and I don't have to go to a school and do like a 4 years, like study for 12 years and then do a course, a diploma course, and then do a master's course and then find a job. In Vedic ways, if I want to learn carpentry, I just have to be with the carpenter. It's as simple as that. If you want to learn a particular skill, be with the person who knows that skill. Now, without any endorsement of that particular skill, which this modern education system has, we won't be able to survive in this world. So we'll have to adapt there. But see how this modern education system has penetrated into our Vedic way of living. If you answer this particular question, how much money do you need? That will solve 99% of your problems in life. But now if I go and ask, okay, who's working right now at 20s, okay, how much money do you need in life? What are you doing in life? If they are not spiritually inclined, they will not find this answer at all. They'll be running around in circles and until they realize at one point in time in life, why am I doing this? When Arjuna asked Krishna, why are we doing this? After Draupadi being stripped in public in front of 1,000 people, and after being insulted multiple times, which has led to this war, Krishna went to convince Duryodhan. And he didn't even respect Krishna's words. And that has led to this battle. And after that, just being seeing through his senses and mind confusing with sentiments, Arjuna asked Krishna, why are we doing this? So even people at more successful level can become confused. So you can learn a lot about what qualities you have to cultivate to be successful, which is sustainable. A lot of leadership qualities, how to purify your mind, how to control your mind management, everything can be learned depending on what relationship you cultivate with people. So you can see it as a conversation between a leader and a student, or a conversation between a guru and a disciple. Any perspective you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Kunal.
I'm just posting my question in the group chat.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to understand is there any difference, real difference between Atma and the Jivatma?
No, actually, Atma and Jivatma is actually the same. So we will be seeing that in detail. So what is Jivatma? So now that, okay, we have discovered and understood that, okay, fine, this is where God sits, right? So now we can go a little bit of more deeper in philosophy and see how we can put things in perspective. So I want each and every one of you to be able to explain how Gita is positioned in the Vedic scriptures, right? And what exactly is ISKCON, okay? How we are positioned as an organization to educate people so that you understand it a much more in a clearer way, and your spiritual journey will be a lot more longer, right? So you'll come across lot many other, basically people who are still devoted to Krishna. Where are they coming from? We are not the only people talking about Krishna. We are not the only people talking about Vishnu. There are many more authorized process, right? So we will go it a bit more in detail in the next session, wherein you touch, okay, what is philosophy? How Vedic philosophy came into existence, right? And what are the different sects in Vedic philosophy, and how ISKCON is positioned. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So you always feel free to post questions in the group. So we'll stop here if there are no questions. And
I
we'll,
have
yeah,
sorry for interrupting. So I have one question. So
yes,
if body, mind, soul, all are three different entities. So why if I have any bad experience, or say let's say even I have a good experience, why does it affect me? Even let's say if we have some have hurt our leg or something, why does it ache me actually? So if three are totally different, then why do I being the person that is feeling the pain?
exactly. So how are you positioning yourself when you say I?
Yeah,
If you're the soul,
yeah,
then if you really understand that you are the soul, then you wouldn't be feeling bad for what happens through your
Yeah.
body, right? So realizing is different and putting it into action is different. So if you are still saying that, okay, I, whatever is happening to my body, I feel sad, because you have to go through that. When you feel good fortunes happen, your body feels good because you get that adrenaline in your brain, like the body's dharma is to fulfill the senses. So automatically, right, when good things happen and bad things happen, are you equipoised? If you have
Yeah.
1 lakh in your bank account and if you have 10 lakhs in your bank account, will your lifestyle be the same? So if you're more inclined towards your soul, right? If your intelligence can be inclined more towards a material platform or towards spiritual platform. So if you're more inclined towards a soul, so basically there are some things which are not in your control. So if you understand the concept of karma, which we'll be discussing in the subsequent classes, so why those things are happening to you, right? Then you will be able to see things in a much more clearer perspective, right? So this world has duality. There will be good fortunes, there will be bad fortune, there will be sadness, there will be happiness. So how are we navigating through that and not letting that influence in our spiritual journey? So lifelong, you'll have to keep working until 40 or 50 or 60. It is not going to change. You will have to maintain your body, you'll have to maintain your family. But who are you? You're taking care of all your material needs, but are you taking care of your spiritual needs? Now that you understand your real identity, what is the food for the soul? You're feeding your body, which is fine, you're nourishing it, maintaining it, but are you feeding your soul? What is the food for your soul? So these are the questions we should be asking. So if possible, before coming to the next session, try to read the first 40 pages of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever we spoke today, the first 40 introduction pages, everything will be there. I can send you the online link if you don't have the book. And people are doing theses, PhD theses, in the first 40 pages of Bhagavad Gita. That's the depth of knowledge it has. These are just the foundation. So now next class we'll see how, a more from a Vedic perspective on Vedic scriptures and why just Gita would be enough and not other scriptures. People will talk about all fancy literatures. We need to read Sanskrit texts, we need to go to Vedas, we need to understand the Upanishads. Not at all required. It's all a misconception. So tomorrow the reason is you have a lot more time left in your life, which you can put it to a much better use if you understand this in a much more clearer perspective and pass it on to the next generation. Make sense? So anything else, any feedback from today's session? I know it's been a bit long session today. We will try to keep up time. I expected this. I had 39 slides to cover. So yeah, still we haven't gone through. So yeah, the first session would be a little more, heavy. So I'll share the session recording. So if any concepts are not clear, until you're clear with these concepts, then it'll be a lot more easier. All the other sessions will be like a cakewalk. Any other questions? If not, we can close this call. All good? Okay. All right. Thanks for staying back on the extended session. So I'll stay in touch on the WhatsApp group. Keep asking your queries and we'll discuss more. We'll have a lot more interesting, deeper sessions coming in the upcoming weeks. Until then, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hare
Cheers.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.